When the beasts of the jungle come together head to head, stand back, because there can be only one winner. It's the Toyota Land Cruiser Amazon versus the Range Rover. And they really don't come any bigger than these two. From Japan, we have the young upstart, the Toyota Land Cruiser Amazon, and the English country gentleman, the Range Rover. Both, as you can see, are huge vehicles. They have enormous V8 engines. They'll pull almost anything you throw at it. And you certainly wouldn't want to get into an argument with either of these two vehicles. Now, the Range Rover has been around for a long, long time. Its previous model saw some 25 years service before this one was introduced in 1994. It's beginning to look, well, a bit dated now, but it's comfortable, it's luxurious, and amongst the well-heeled and the country set, the Range Rover is the best thing on four wheels. Toyota, as well as Land Rover, are renowned for producing superb, almost bulletproof 4x4 vehicles. The Amazon is truly massive, and it's not often you can say that a car dwarfs a Range Rover, but the Land Cruiser does. This latest generation was introduced in 1998, including some revisions to the engines. It's over 16 feet long and nearly 6.5 feet wide, and would probably give you serious problems parking this in the supermarket car park week in, week out. Now, both cars benefit from adjustable height control, which means you can vary it to set it higher or lower depending on what sort of terrain you're going, for instance, over rocky roads or wading through water. The Toyota's is not as complex though as the Range Rover's, which benefits from air suspension and gives an unparalleled ride all the way round. The Land Cruiser is the top of the range 4.6 VX V8, produces 232 brake horsepower. You can also have manual options and diesel ones as well with a 4.2 litre engine. Similar sort of thing with the Range Rover, 2.5 BMW diesels, a 4 litre V8, or this 4.6 HSE V8 producing 225 brake horsepower. Now, interior space is interesting in these because that's where the Land Cruiser definitely wins. As you can see in here, it is positively enormous, but unfortunately, in terms of style, rather disappointing. If you want a car that offers more interior space than this, then I suggest you buy a double-decker bus. It seats 7 people with fold-away rear seats, enough space for your luggage as well. But one thing the Japanese have never been able to match the Brits for is the quality of their interiors, and this car is no exception. Lots of grey plastic everywhere, and the grey leather combination doesn't exactly help. It also has more buttons and gadgets than even I know what to do with. This car really is too big for everyday driving. Toyota see the Amazon as a rival to quality luxury cars like the S-Class and the 7 Series. It's also interesting to note that Toyota have decided not to badge the Amazon as a Lexus in this country, as they do in many countries abroad. I'm afraid in the driving stakes, the Amazon is not much fun at all to drive. The steering is very lifeless, it's very wishy-washy, there's no feedback to the driver. Sure, it has a very responsive 4.7 litre V8 engine linked to a very smooth automatic gearbox, but it's off-road where cars like this really come into its own. It's just such a big car to place on tight country lanes that you wouldn't want to do too much of that sort of driving, and there's an awful lot of body roll as well. Under the bonnet, of course, is that big V8 engine, which means that this is a thirsty beast. Expect around town to get around 12 miles to the gallon. On the motorway, you might, if you have a light right foot, get close to 20, but don't expect much more. If you wanted a car to drive across the outback of Australia, for instance, which would you choose? Well, the Amazon would certainly be the #1 choice. It is ultra reliable, and unfortunately, the Range Rover is not. If you're driving hundreds and hundreds of miles, you don't want a car that's going to break down on you. And believe me, this won't. It's also a car that in busy city traffic you can edge out from a tight side road, and other cars just seem to shrink out of the way. It's really rather fun. It's funny how two direct rivals in the 4x4 market can be so different. Interior-wise, for me, you just can't beat the Range Rover. It has a great combination of leather, wood and quality plastics. It eludes the air of a gentleman's club with these superb front armchairs. It's not as big as the Land Cruiser, admittedly. But if you specify the autobiography one, you can have just about anything you want. Satellite navigation, different leather and wood, televisions and videos in the back, picnic tables. If you've got the money, it's yours. I have to say I'm a big fan of the Range Rover. Sure, it looks a bit outdated these days. It is, after all, due for a change in the next year or so. But it's still, for me, one of the kings of the off-road market. It certainly has reliability problems. There are horrific reports of cars like this which cost £50,000 new, quite simply bursting into flames. Bits drop off them. Hopefully the reliability problem will at some stage be solved, but don't bet your life on it. It's a great car to drive off-road and on-road as well. It certainly drives and handles better than the Amazon. But of course, cars like this aren't meant to be pushed hard down fast country lanes like sports cars. You just can't expect it to drive like that. But it's a very relaxed, very comfortable, very luxurious cruiser. The most worrying aspect of the Range Rover is fuel consumption. This 4.6 litre V8 engine positively drinks fuel like there's no tomorrow. Around town you might get about 250 miles to the tank. On a long high-speed run, maybe about 350, maybe a touch more. But remember, you've put over £60 worth of fuel in there in the first place. Quite frightening, really. The Land Cruiser is such a robust car. It's great off-road. It's a car that will never let you down. It's just a shame about that poor interior and the sheer size of it. It's not cheap either, £44,000 for that model. Also not cheap is the Range Rover, £50,000 for that HSE. It's a car that, if image is important to you, well, it's certainly a car to be seen in. It'll be interesting to see how Land Rover changed the vehicle at the start of the next century. So for me, just about, it's the Range Rover I'll be driving home in tonight.